Imagine a person who seems to have it all. They are successful, wealthy, and admired by others. This person could be anyone: an artist, a businessman, or even a politician. They have everything society says they should want: power, money, fame. But despite all of these things, they start to feel empty inside. They wake up one day and ask themselves, what is the purpose of all this? Why do I exist? This is what we call an existential crisis. It's a moment in life when everything seems to lose meaning. And it's not something only a few people experience. Everyone, at some point, may find themselves wondering, what am I really living for? Or what is the true meaning of life? One of the most famous figures to go through an existential crisis was the Russian writer Leo Tolstoy. He had everything: fame, wealth, and success. But he still felt deeply unhappy. In fact, at a certain point, he started to feel that his life was meaningless. Tolstoy's life was a perfect example of what many people go through when they face an existential crisis. He realized that all the material things he had worked so hard for, money, status, and recognition, couldn't give him the inner peace or happiness he was seeking. Despite being rich and famous, he began asking himself, why does all of this matter? His sense of emptiness grew, and that feeling led him to question the very purpose of life itself. What really triggered Tolstoy's crisis was his growing awareness of death. As he got older, he could not ignore the fact that everyone dies, including himself. He started to realize that death is the final answer to all our questions. No matter how much money, power, or fame a person has, death always comes in the end. This realization shook him deeply. In psychology, this is often referred to as the awareness of the impermanence of life. It's a powerful moment when we realize that nothing lasts forever. The things we often spend our lives chasing, like wealth and success, are temporary. Death makes us realize that all these things will eventually fade away. This is one of the core concepts of existential psychology. Life is brief, and it can sometimes feel like it has no lasting meaning. But even with this awareness of death, Tolstoy didn't immediately find peace. He had to fight a battle within himself. On one side, he had the world of materialism, the comfort of money, fame, and power that had always surrounded him. On the other side, he had a desire for something deeper, something that could give his life real meaning. This inner conflict is something many of us experience in life. We want to find purpose, but we are often distracted by the pursuit of material success. We get caught up in the desire for things: nice clothes, a big house, recognition, believing that these things will bring us happiness. But deep down, we know that these external achievements are only temporary. Tolstoy was torn between these two worlds: the world of material success, which had given him wealth and fame, and the world of spiritual fulfillment, which promised something more lasting and meaningful. At the end of his journey, Tolstoy chose a path that led to spiritual fulfillment. He realized that inner peace and a sense of purpose couldn't be found in external things. True happiness, for him, was found in simplicity, humility, and a connection to something greater than himself. This journey of Tolstoy is not just a historical example, it's something we can all relate to. Every day we are faced with choices about where to invest our time, energy, and resources. Will we chase after external rewards, or will we search for something deeper, something that gives life true meaning? An existential crisis can be a painful experience, but it also offers an opportunity for personal growth. It pushes us to look beyond the surface and ask the important questions. What truly matters in my life? What do I value the most? The lesson from Tolstoy's story is clear. Life's real meaning isn't found in what we achieve externally, but in how we choose to live internally. By facing our fears, embracing the impermanence of life, and seeking deeper purpose, we can find the peace that Tolstoy eventually found. So whenever you feel lost or uncertain, remember that questioning life is a natural part of being human. It's not a sign of weakness, but a sign of growth. Embrace it. Ask the big questions, and be open to the answers that come. Not from the world outside, but from the world within. After experiencing his existential crisis, Tolstoy began to search for a new way to define the meaning of life. Up until that point, he had believed that wealth, fame, and personal success were the ultimate goals. But these things no longer brought him happiness or fulfillment. The more he achieved, the more he felt empty inside. Tolstoy realized that he couldn't find the answer to life's big questions in the material world. Instead, he turned to something deeper, the connection with others and the pursuit of a higher ideal. At this point, Tolstoy made a critical decision. He started to see that real meaning in life couldn't be found in what you achieve for yourself, but rather in how you connect with others and live according to higher values. This moment of realization marked the beginning of his transformation. He was no longer focused on gaining more wealth or fame. Instead, he wanted to live a life that served others and contributed to something greater than himself. This is where he found his peace, by shifting his focus from personal achievement to human connection and moral values. This journey that Tolstoy embarked on aligns closely with the concepts in humanistic psychology, a field that focuses on the idea that people have the potential for self-growth and self-actualization. The goal of self-actualization is to reach the highest potential within oneself, not through external success, but through deep personal development and the pursuit of meaningful life experiences. Tolstoy's story is an example of someone who experienced this kind of psychological transformation. He realized that true fulfillment didn't come from accumulating riches or recognition. Instead, it came from serving others, living with integrity, and focusing on inner growth. This aligns perfectly with the humanistic idea that our highest purpose is to reach our full potential, not through material wealth, but through empathy, service, and connection with others. Before his crisis, Tolstoy had found purpose in his achievements, his success as a writer, and his status in society. However, after his deep reflection, he realized that these accomplishments didn't satisfy his soul. Instead of finding peace in fame, he began to feel more empty. This feeling of emptiness is something that many people experience at some point in their lives. We often think that achieving success, whether it's in our career, our appearance, or our wealth, will bring us happiness. However, like Tolstoy, many people eventually discover that these things do not lead to true fulfillment. The emptiness can grow as we achieve more, but still feel like something is missing. This is where Tolstoy's transformation took place. He found true meaning by serving those who were less fortunate than him, by embracing a simple life, and by living according to moral principles. His actions reflected a deep belief that compassion and selflessness lead to a more fulfilling life. This shift is a reflection of what many modern psychological theories suggest, that true satisfaction comes from living a life of service to others, rather than focusing on personal gain. Tolstoy's change in perspective shows us how a person can move from a life of material success to a life of altruism and moral purpose. This transition is not just about changing actions, but about a deep shift in how we view ourselves and the world. Psychology today teaches that the pursuit of personal success is often tied to external rewards, like money or status. However, when people focus too much on these rewards, they can miss out on deeper, more meaningful experiences. Tolstoy's story is a powerful reminder that true meaning in life doesn't come from external rewards, but from internal growth and connection with others. When we stop chasing after material success and instead focus on helping others, we often find a sense of purpose that is much deeper than anything wealth or fame can offer. Tolstoy found his peace when he stopped looking for happiness in the things he could buy or achieve, and started looking for happiness in the ways he could give to others. This shift in focus is one of the most important lessons we can learn, that life's true meaning comes not from what we get, but from what we give. So when you find yourself feeling lost or uncertain about your place in the world, remember Tolstoy's journey. You don't need to have everything to feel fulfilled. Sometimes, living a life of service guided by compassion is the most powerful way to find peace and meaning in a world that often values the wrong things. Tolstoy's journey demonstrates that we don't have to be rich or famous to find purpose. Instead, true purpose comes from serving others, being kind, and living a life of integrity. When we shift our focus from self-centered goals to the well-being of others, we often find a sense of fulfillment that is deeper and more lasting. Tolstoy didn't just give up material possessions. He also began to free himself from his own ego. This concept is closely related to the principle of non-self in Eastern psychology, especially in Buddhism. The ego often keeps us trapped in a cycle of desire and attachment. Tolstoy realized that only when a person lets go of their personal desires and attachments can they experience true spiritual freedom. It's not about what we own or how others see us. It's about shedding the need to prove ourselves and simply being. This idea is so powerful because it frees us from the expectations of the world and allows us to be present in the moment. Another crucial part of the spiritual freedom Tolstoy found was accepting impermanence. He came to understand that everything in life is temporary, and death is an inseparable part of the living experience. This acceptance isn't about being afraid of death. It's about embracing the truth that nothing lasts forever. In thanatology, the psychology of death, we learn that instead of fearing death, we must accept it as a part of the human condition. When Tolstoy embraced the idea that everything has an end, he could live more fully in the present. He didn't cling to what was or worry about what might be. Instead, he accepted that each moment was precious because it would pass, and that realization brought him inner peace. This acceptance of impermanence allowed Tolstoy to focus on what really mattered, the present moment. When we let go of our attachments to the past or our fears about the future, we begin to see the beauty in simply existing. Tolstoy's spiritual freedom came not from escaping life's struggles, but from facing them with an open heart and mind. He realized that true freedom is found not by escaping the world, but by fully embracing it with all its challenges and beauty. As Tolstoy's journey progressed, he found that the more he gave, the more he received in return. This isn't just a moral lesson, it's a psychological truth. When we stop focusing on accumulating things for ourselves, we begin to experience deeper connections with others. Giving, whether it's love, time, or care, creates bonds that enrich our lives. It's a form of spiritual abundance. Tolstoy's realization that life is not about what we have, but about what we give, highlights the ultimate form of freedom. The freedom to live for others and to love without expecting anything in return. Through Tolstoy's journey of spiritual freedom, we learn that true freedom isn't about escaping from life. It's about embracing it fully, letting go of the need for control, and living in a way that is deeply connected to the world around us. This kind of freedom doesn't come from things. It comes from within. When we accept impermanence, release our ego, and live with love, we can find the kind of freedom that leads to peace and fulfillment. Once there was a man named Daniel who lived his life constantly fearing the unknown. The idea of death haunted him. Every time he thought about the end of his life, a feeling of dread filled his chest. This fear made him anxious, and he found it hard to enjoy the present moment. He spent much of his time worrying about what might happen in the future, and his life felt heavy with the weight of that uncertainty. One day, Daniel came across a book by Leo Tolstoy, a great writer who had once struggled with the same fear of death. In his later years, Tolstoy had realized something that changed everything for him. He realized that death is unavoidable, and the fear of death itself causes most of the suffering we experience in life. Daniel began to think deeply about this idea. He understood that the fear of death was controlling his every action. This fear made him unhappy, keeping him trapped in a cycle of worry. But what if he could change his mindset? What if accepting death could actually set him free? As he continued reading, Daniel found himself accepting the truth. Death is part of life, and it cannot be avoided. This didn't mean that he should give up on life, but rather that he should live fully while he could. Like Tolstoy, Daniel started to see that life has more meaning when we realize its impermanence. The fact that life is temporary makes every moment precious. It was like a light bulb went off in his mind. He didn't have to fear death anymore. He could focus on living well instead. This story reflects what psychology teaches us about the fear of death. Studies show that accepting death can actually help reduce anxiety and stress. When we stop fearing death, we start living more fully. We are able to appreciate the present and enjoy each moment for what it is. The more we resist the idea of death, the more we suffer. But when we accept it, we free ourselves from the chains of fear. Tolstoy's transformation is a powerful example. He found peace not by avoiding death, but by facing it directly. In the same way, Daniel found peace when he embraced the reality of impermanence. He understood that death is not the end of life's meaning, but a natural part of the cycle that gives life its richness. When Daniel let go of his fear, something amazing happened. He started to live without the constant weight of worry. He stopped dwelling on what might happen tomorrow and began to enjoy the simple moments of life. Whether it was a conversation with a friend, a walk in the park, or just sitting quietly, Daniel found joy in each moment. This shift in perspective is what psychology refers to when it talks about the power of changing our thoughts. By accepting the reality of death, we shift from fearing the end to living with intention. This change allows us to reduce stress and live in a way that's more meaningful. Just like Tolstoy and Daniel, we can all find freedom by accepting the impermanence of life. Life is short, and understanding this can help us live it fully, without fear or regret. Once upon a time, there was a man named John, living in a busy city. John had everything: a big house, a luxury car, and all the things money could buy. Yet he often felt lonely and stressed. He felt that no matter how much he had, he was never truly happy. One day, John met an old man who lived in a small cottage outside the city. The old man lived simply, surrounded by nature, with only the bare essentials. When John asked him why he lived this way, the old man smiled and said, I have everything I need in this quiet life. I no longer chase after things that bring only temporary happiness. Instead, I focus on the peace within me and the beauty around me. John was curious, so he decided to spend a week with the old man, away from the noise of the city. During this time, he realized something important. As he spent more time with nature and away from distractions, his mind became calmer. He no longer thought about what he didn't have, but appreciated the simple things like fresh air, the sound of birds, and the quiet of the forest. This experience was life-changing for John. He learned that true happiness doesn't come from material possessions, but from the peace and contentment found within. He realized that living simply allowed him to focus on what truly mattered: his health, his relationships, and his inner peace. John's story reflects the psychology of simplicity, which is about removing unnecessary distractions from our lives to focus on what is truly important. By simplifying his life, John was able to reduce the stress that came from constantly wanting more, and instead, he found peace in the present moment. This transformation is not just a lifestyle choice, it's a mental approach that frees us from the constant worries about material things. It helps us reconnect with ourselves and find contentment in the simplest of things. The more we let go of external pressures, the more we can focus on what truly brings us joy and fulfillment. Just as Tolstoy did when he chose a life of simplicity and harmony with nature.